Introduce myself. My name is Beth Holm, and I am currently the interim principal here at Chaska Middle School East, and I've been very lucky to serve that role for the last year, and we will see what happens next year with the current positions, but it's been a great year here at Chaska Middle School East, and we will see what happens next year. But wanting to introduce a couple other people that are really important to us here at East. You met Andrew Gilbert, our assistant principal, as you were walking in. He's waving in the back there. And Heather Rickard is right over here. She is our administrative dean at Chaska Middle School East. And Bridget Borner is here right now. She's at one of the screens right over there. She is one of our counselors. Our other counselor, Katie Sheehan, is currently out on maternity leave, but will be back to welcome your sixth graders next year, so we're excited for that. And Amy Sharonbrock is our personalized learning coach, and she will be here to talk to us a lot about different types of learning here at East that you can look forward to next year. Some other people that we have throughout the building right now clicking our different computers for us to make sure you guys can all see our screens are Emily Baining. Emily is a social studies teacher in sixth grade this year for us, as well as teaching some of our encore classes. And we have Andrew Waller, who's also a social studies teacher at East, and Pete Tornquist, who is teaching both math and comm arts for sixth graders this year. So we are really excited to have you guys here today. I have to say this is one of my favorite nights of the entire year, getting to see all of your faces and hoping to see lots of new students as well, even though we already met all the new students when we started our registration information not that long ago. But it just really gets us excited for what's coming next year, and obviously, as you all know, we're already starting to plan, already thinking about staffing and numbers and making sure that we have everything ready for you guys when the year starts next year. So just an information for you, questions during the presentation. If you have a device on you, you can use www.menti.com and enter that code, and Heather will be watching the questions over there so that throughout the entire night, any questions you have, we can make sure they get answered either during the presentation or at the end of the presentation as well. And of course, we'll be around for questions afterwards too. But really, one of the things I just want to say about East, really to me, East is kind of home. I have worked here now for about 9 years. I've been a counselor at East. I've been the dean at East. I've been the assistant principal at East, and now obviously in that one-year principal role. And I've loved this school so much and the staff that we have working here that I actually moved my family to make sure that my daughter can come to school here, who is currently a kindergartner at Jonathan. So it's a place that I'm really passionate about. And the reason that I feel that way is just because of how passionate our teachers are for our kids and all of our staff throughout East. It's just a really great place to send your kids every day. So I just want to think about transition. I know that tonight is a really big night for everybody. I just last year sat at the kindergarten night with my own daughter, and it's one of those things where there's lots of information that we're going to share with you, and it can be kind of overwhelming hearing about Discover and Endeavor and trying to make decisions about classes for your child. But I know that the most important thing that we can tell you tonight is that when you send your kids through these doors next year, they will be cared about. And the most important thing that we have here at East is making sure there's a safe and caring environment for your kids, and that we value their social emotional learning as well as their academics. So to me, that's the most important thing. If you walk away from anything tonight, you walk away knowing that every adult in this building, our janitors, our cooks, our administrative staff, all our teachers, the most important thing to them is that your kids feel safe and welcomed here at East, and we hope that we give them that on a day-to-day basis. If you look around, all of our people are trying to keep up with the clicks here. All right, so some of the things that we think about here at East is really that education is changing. And we know that we want to make sure that we continue to change our education system in order to meet the needs of your learners and your kids. And one of the things that is a big goal for us to do that is to make sure that we help students learn how to learn. We know that now our students can find information at the tip of their fingers with their Chromebooks, with their phones, and an immediate rate at any time that they want to throughout their entire day. So it's important for us to not just help students learn content, but so that they can learn how to learn and make sure that no matter what situation that they're in, they're able to figure out problem solving and use those other skills as well. So when you look around our building, you're going to see all these different words all over. And right over there, the developing 21st century learners and leaders. And upstairs, if you walk around our building and all through here, you're going to see all those 21st century skills over on the left-hand side of the screen. And those are more than just words that are in our building through our walls. They are really what we strive for every kid within our building, is to learn those skills and make sure that when they leave us as ninth graders, that they are able to use those skills in many ways throughout their life. So that's really important for us. As well as making sure that kids aren't just remembering things for tests, that they're remembering, relationships they had with our teachers and remembering all those different skills, thinking about leadership, how can they communicate with each other effectively, and collaboration is a really big one that we take really seriously, not just teaching kids how to collaborate, but modeling it throughout our building and our collaboration throughout all of our teachers as well. So thinking about your transition from elementary to middle school, one of the things that I think about are what are the things that are going to be the same and what are the things that are going to be different. And obviously when we think about the things that are going to be different, one of the big things that every kid thinks about when they walk is looking right around this building is that yes, they will have their own locker. It's really an important thing and also a really nerve-wracking thing. They're going to be nervous, their hands are going to be sweaty, they're going to be worried that they're going to remember their combination, and that's something that we know and we take really seriously. And make sure lots of parents, so you guys will get the emails about volunteering too, and making sure that those first couple of weeks of school we have a lot of help for our middle schoolers to get their combinations open, to feel comfortable getting to class on time. Another big change is no recess, which whenever we say that at the elementary building, sometimes they're super excited about it and some are super bummed about it. So it's one of those things. This is our lunchroom as well, so typically there's not chairs here, there's lunch tables all over, and they are expected to sit during lunch and not go for recess, which I know is a hard transition for a lot of kids. Another different thing, obviously we're going to have more classes and teachers. One thing that I would assume most of you are probably excited about is another change for us even for next year is our start and end time change. We currently start the building at 7:30 in the morning and we end at 2:20. And next year our start and end time is 8:40 in the morning until 3:30. So instead of getting on the buses at 6:45 in the morning, students will be able to be still sleeping hopefully at that time. So that's another big change that's coming for us also, but it'll be pretty similar to what they're experiencing right now at their elementary schools. Obviously another big thing that's different about coming to middle school is really two elementary schools coming together. And this year with some boundary changes, we even have some more students from other buildings that are joining us. And it's a really exciting time to meet some new people and gain new relationships, but it's also kind of a stressful time for kids and thinking about friendships changing. So it's a good thing to be aware of too. Also, different lunch options. Obviously our lunch lines are right behind us, and we have about 4 different lunch lines each day. We've got our salad bar line, we have a regular line, and we have an alternate line every day, as well as we have some a la carte options as well. So kids are always really excited about those first couple of weeks at lunch. But that also kind of includes one of the things that's the same, and I know this is an exciting part for kids too. Their lunch pins will be the same. So we always think about the most important things about that first day of school. We get them on the bus, we feed them, and we get them home and in their lockers so they can grab their things to head out the door. And those are some things that we can guarantee will happen. Also, thinking about the same. One of the things that I think that's the same is coming from the elementary buildings. I know who your teachers have been throughout our district, and you've had some really great staff members, and that is one of the things that we really pride ourselves on at East, that we have a lot of amazing staff members who are going to be very caring. Kind of a different thing is that they're going to be middle school teachers, which obviously is a little bit different than teaching elementary students. I know that whenever somebody asks me, what do you do for a living, and I tell them I work at a middle school, it's either, oh gosh, how do you do that? Or like, you deserve a special place in heaven. So But all of our middle school teachers really are passionate about being here with this age of students. It is such an exciting time in their lives, and it is such a great time of growth and change and independence, and we all really feed into that and help our students through that too. Another thing, obviously, like I mentioned before, our safe school environment. That's the same thing that we will experience from elementary to middle school, and is absolutely the most important thing we can do for your kids. Also, advisories and homerooms. So what students are used to is that homeroom that they may check and do multiple times throughout the day. They will still have an advisor that they're checking in with here at middle school. It'll just be that it'll be either the morning or the afternoon. We haven't ironed out our schedule for next year, but that advisor will be their one check-in person that they have Mondays, Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays, as well as their core subjects. They will have math, they're going to have language arts, they're going to have science, and they're going to have social studies throughout their day. So those are some really important things. So like I said, thinking about middle school and how teachers are different and some of the really special things about our middle school learners, parenting tween or teen is really kind of a roller coaster. And I had a neighbor recently tell me a story that she was told when her kids hit middle school and kind of hit that teenage, and she said, how do I deal with it? How do I get myself ready to make sure that I can help them through everything? And a older relative of hers had described it as, it's kind of just a roller coaster. You just like bringing your kids to Valley Fair. You need to, bring them to that roller coaster, give them a hug before they go on and wave at them while they are enjoying the ride. And be there to greet them when they come off of their ups and downs. And I think that that's the most important thing we can do for our middle school kids, is just really be that voice of reason and that person to support them through all their trials and successes at middle school. So Andrew Gilbert, our assistant principal, is going to share a little bit more about what you can expect to see out of your middle schooler.
Well, thank you, and again, welcome. I know I had the opportunity back in the mid-90s. I was a teacher here, social studies, taught primarily 7th grade, a little bit 8th grade. Left for a few years, did some international teaching, but also some administrative work at Chaska High School. And now, I think I really found where my passion was when I saw the opening. Came back to enjoy middle school again. And what I'm going to talk about is kind of what I enjoy middle school so much, and it's such a impactful age. Not only for kids, but teachers, but parents, and just a couple of things to expect to see. Some of you might be your first child coming through as a middle schooler. Some of you have been through this before, but probably the number one thing that you'll notice is just rapid changes in terms of physical appearance. With your kids, sometimes they're going to come home feeling maybe embarrassed or very self-conscious, and you know what? That's part of that middle school experience, because it's interesting. Each day you see the 6th graders over here, and then you see the 7th graders, and you see the 8th graders, and it's just amazing the difference. But in a way, it's fun to see that growth, not only through maturation, but also just with their thinking skills and everything. I think that's what I remember being a teacher, is just to see that progression, and that's a lot of fun. Social emotional. Just that strive for independence. They're finding out they want that information about decision making as much as you don't want to, and I'm a parent myself, is sometimes they start to look to peers more often for opinions or recognition than you. And that's part of growing up, and that's part of that process to expect. They want to feel important, and I think just having those conversations, telling them, yeah, you are important. What are you learning? How are you connected to it? Because they want to feel important and believe in something. And academics, they're going to start having a lot more questions. And I would say as a teacher in middle school, that was the most fun that I had teaching, was you'd ask a question and they may not even know the answer, but they wanted to at least give it a shot, which I love that about middle school, because they're willing to do that. And that was a lot of fun. And they want to challenge some assumptions. They've heard things, and now as middle schoolers, they're starting to question things, which also is fun to see as they develop. They're going to start moving from more kind of concrete to abstract thinking, and we want to really push those higher level thinking skills to really question some of the things they've always thought was true, or some assumptions, and to develop those lifelong skills, problem solving, critical thinking, everything that Ms. Holm talked about. the communication. All of those 21st century skills are things that our teachers are continually challenging our students with, which at times is tough, but also very, very important. Next slide. Oh, where are we? And what can you do as parents? Number one, stay involved. They're going to want to start pushing you away. And I know not only as a teacher, but also as a parent. I have my third child now going through middle school, and I experienced that as a parent. But I had to keep telling myself, nope, I need to stay involved. Check in on their phone, social media. And this is something, again, where they have a little bit of freedom, and sometimes they go a little bit too far. So I think a lot of it is having those conversations, checking in with them, talking about the responsibility of having that phone and being on social media and having access to all those spots, where continuously stay involved with them. Know their friends. Know their friends' families is always important. Listen, validate their feelings. Support them when they make mistakes. Middle school, they're going to make a lot of mistakes. We all make mistakes. And I guess how we look at it is we want them to learn from that. And then when there's success, we really got to recognize, we got to celebrate that success when they have that. And please tell them you will be there for them. Even when times are down, they make a mistake, as long as they know that you're there supporting them, that's what they need at that moment. A couple opportunities and new courses. You're going to be talking a little bit about what the 6th grade schedule will look like in terms of some of the core classes. But I want to talk a little bit about elective classes. Each year there are 2 what we call elective or required elective courses. One is FACS class, or Family and Consumer Sciences. Really looking at the description that our teacher put down is nutritious foods can taste great. You have the opportunity to participate in food labs to enhance your culinary skills. What do fun, healthy, and economical meals look like for you? You'll also be exploring the world of child development and early literacy, and you'll learn how to safely care and relate to young children. So there's kind of a lot that goes into that class, and something that's a little bit different next year, especially if you've had middle schoolers go through, is next year we're aligning with the high school that we will be going to 2 semesters. So instead of having trimesters next year, we're aligning a little bit better with the high schools. We're going 2 semesters. So one of those semesters, they'll have this, and then the other, they'll have it's a new class they started this year, where it's technology and design thinking. It's really, students in this class will apply and reflect upon the behaviors that support learning. They'll approach problems using design thinking and application. Through the use of current technology and multidisciplinary projects, students will learn to apply the skills of critical thinking, creativity, communication, and collaboration. And again, we really wanted a class for all kids to really think about those 4 C's. How are they working together? How are they really critically thinking? And it's something that this year we developed. It's gone very, very well, and now we're looking to expand that and include even more technology as we expand that to a semester-long class. And on the left side, these are the other options that your child has, and there's a lot of different options to go along with some music opportunities, band, choir, orchestra, personal wellness, and there's a lot of different options. Now, the schedule is a little bit limited, so some of these will determine their choice. For instance, if you are a person who wants to be both in band or orchestra or band and choir, you would not have personal wellness. Personal wellness, for those who aren't in band or choir, you could have that for the entire year, or we do an every other day. So you have choir one day, personal wellness, we have an A and a B, and then in a block day, we actually split that block in half. So for the first half of the block, they go to band. For the second half of the block, they go to personal wellness, or vice versa. So that's a little bit about some of those electives. Another opportunity is world language. And I know particularly one person, as they were coming in, had questions about that. And I know that's something that's also an option. And that is, they can take Spanish class. This is a high school level class that they take in 6th grade for a full year. The grade for the course does count towards their credit on their high school transcript, so that's something that they can opt to take. Just so you know, pace and rigor will be fast. It is an accelerated course. It is a high school course. And if you do decide to take that, or your child takes that, when they're in 8th grade, they would probably get to Spanish 3. Now, we're fortunate this year that we offer that class here, but oftentimes it depends on numbers, where we actually have, I think, 11 students from West who travel over here for that class, and they may host that class next year. It kind of depends on where our numbers fall. Or there might even be a possibility if numbers are too big or too small, not necessarily for Spanish, but we have other kids with math who are traveling to the high school to take courses, because we can't offer those here, but we want to make sure that they have that opportunity. So there's definitely ways for us to work with the other schools within the district to obviously make sure that that works within your schedule. So, and again, for the world language option, that would replace one of those other required electives, because that's what you are choosing to take. So that's just a little bit about our electives.
Yeah, so moving on to Chromebooks. If your child went to one of the public schools in Chaska or Chanhassen, they should already have a Chromebook, so you may be pretty familiar with this. But we really focus on that it's not a device, but it's a tool, and it's a way to further personalize in our classroom. So maybe it's accessing curriculum, maybe it's a different way to show what they know. There was a question that came up, does 21st century mean lots of screen time during school? I know teachers work really hard to balance that we know a big part of 21st century skills are those communication and collaboration skills. And some of those are digital things that we need to be able to communicate and collaborate, but we know a lot of those are face-to-face interactions, which our teachers work really hard to do hands-on activities, to do simulations. And our teachers also receive professional development in the summer and throughout the year to help access different tools and sites and apps through their Chromebooks. If you had insurance this year, it works pretty much the same on your Chromebook, that you'll be able to purchase insurance for next school year that will go all the way from September 1st through August, through the summer. Insurance is $25, and that $25 would get you, if your child breaks a screen, which is our most common breakage. So if the screen breaks, you would get that first screen replaced for free for that $25. You would also get any other repair after that at half price. If you don't have insurance, a first screen replacement is $50, and then of course everything else is full price. So you'll have opportunities, not tonight, but probably as school gets closer, to purchase insurance for your Chromebook.
All right. Next up on the list here is kind of our math classes. And Pete's here to talk a little bit with me about our math school scope and sequence, and what does that really look like for our students that start here in 6th grade, and how does that translate all the way into our 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th grade classes. As you can see, there's multiple different levels of math class that they can enter into, and I'll let Pete describe a couple of those, and then I'll talk about placement after that.
So I'll help you break down this math map here, I guess, kind of help you think through where your child might be in. So I'm going to start kind of with this third level right here. This is where the majority of our kids are. It's a little bit over 50%. If you think of like the regular level class, it's kind of this area right down here. It's the pre-algebra 1.5 year into pre-algebra or algebra 1.5. There's a lot of confusion at the beginning of 6th grade about who's in what class, because a lot of the kids see that pre-algebra class and they think, I'm in pre-algebra. Well, there's a lot of differences in with how long the pre-algebra year takes, so I'll kind of help you show here. So this class right here, this one right here would be the regular, about 50% of our kids this year anyway have. They'll be taking algebra essentially in 8th grade. That's traditionally where the regular level kid would take algebra. This class right here, the reason why that these are different is we found that for personalized learning and for flex grouping, some kids just need a little more time and a little more repetition to learn the algebra concepts that are needed. So we take a little bit more with the pre-algebra, and then when we get into algebra, we found that many 8th graders are kind of rushed through it, and then they're not ready for algebra 2 once they get to that point. So in this path, they get algebra for 2 years, where they'll take it in 8th grade, and then they'll get it again in 9th grade, and then they'll have geometry in 10th grade and so forth. On this regular pace level, you'll have geometry in 9th grade, and then it goes into algebra 2 in 10th. And it actually does get into calculus if you'd still like to, just for that regular level path. In the more advanced levels, so if you take pre-algebra in 1 year, you'll have algebra as a 7th grader, geometry here as an 8th grader, and then you'll do algebra 2 as a 9th grader. You could be taking calculus as a junior then, if you took pre-calc as your sophomore year, so you could get 2 years of calculus in, which including myself, I didn't even have that option when I was in middle school, and I'm sure many of you didn't. So this might seem fast-paced for many of you just in itself. This is incredibly fast in my mind going through it, but kids are able to do it, and that is having algebra in 6th grade, then they can go through geometry and algebra 2 here. In 8th grade, we have about 10%, just rounding to that, that are in this kind of path right now. And then you can actually get through 3 levels of calculus in high school after you have pre-calculus as a 9th grader. So it's really high-level math. I think right now, just kind of going through the numbers in my head, it's about 10, 20, 50, 20 as far as percentages about where kids are. 70% in this algebra as an 8th grader range. Now, of course, we don't just take the top 10% every year and put them in the top, and then 20%. We put them where your kid needs to be put and where they're ready to go. And that's kind of how we look at it. That's probably going to talk about that too.
Thanks, Pete. Yeah, and so really placement for math is a really important thing for your kids and for you as parents too. So we take a lot of things into consideration when we determine a math placement. We look at about 2 years of MAP and MCA data, so we don't really make that final determination until the end of this school year. And we work really closely with their elementary math teacher in making that decision as well. And then really the other really important piece is all about course completion. So what are they currently taking and what are they ready for next year? Obviously, if a student skipped all of algebra and went from pre-algebra to geometry, when they move into algebra 2, that would be a really hard transition for them. So we want to make sure they have that good foundation of their math skills in order to move on to that next one. One really good question is, are all 6th graders in the same math class? And no, they are not. So throughout our building, we have lots of different levels of math classes. So we could have 6th graders in this class, 6th graders in this class, 6th graders in this class, and this class here, our algebra class, is always usually mixed between our 6th and 7th grade students. So if your 6th grader is going to start in algebra, they will likely be in class with other 7th grade students. And we do have some students that'll be starting in geometry as 6th graders as well. And, those different levels of math really depending upon their peers, they may have students in their classes, they may not have students in their class that are the same age as them. But we work really hard to ensure that if we've got students, 6th graders in an algebra class that are mixed with 7th graders, we make sure there are some 6th grade peers with them at all costs. So it's not going to be a situation where they have, 3 different algebra classes that are mixed, 6th and 7th grade, and your kid ends up the only 6th grader in that class with other 7th graders. We work really hard on that. The other thing we do our absolute best to make sure is that kids don't have cross grade level classes during lunch hour so that they still get to eat with other 6th grade students. Due to our block schedule, on one day they do eat during a different hour of their day. Currently lunch is out a 5th hour. Next year it'll likely be out a 4th hour because of our lunch or our time change. And then on odd block days it'll be during 5th hour. And so it's important to know that there may be that chance that one day a week they may end up eating with a different grade level and some peers in their like grade level as well. Yeah.
One of the questions that came up was if Algebra 2 is a high school level, if you get credit for it for high school, and the answer to that is yes, you do get credit for that. Actually, can you go back just on this one anyway, one screen? I just want to talk about. So I've taught 7th grade quite a few years here too, and if your child starts on this track, there is some movement that's certainly flexible. It's tough to move once you get into this area, because you can't like skip over geometry, or you can't skip algebra 2 or algebra. But when you're sitting in this area, there's some flexibility. There was 5 specific kids I remember last year who they started down in pre-algebra in this 2-year thing, and they didn't really need the algebra for 2 years track. So they went from here, and then mid-year they moved up to being able to get through algebra just this current year, and all 5 are doing just fine in algebra. So there is some flexibility at the beginning in 6th grade depending on what your kid needs. If you want to go to that next one now, guys, I can. So this is just kind of a looking forward type thing. To me, this looks a little bit Greek for thinking about what it might look for some of you. But if you kind of follow the track here, you can kind of see the way it could go going into high school. The Algebra 2, this first track into the multivariable calculus, this would be for the highly advanced kid. The regular level students would go through algebra as an 8th grader, then geometry, Algebra 2, and then they go from pre-calculus, possibly if they want to continue going strong, then they can go into AP Calc, or possibly they could take a less rigorous route and go from FTS into one of those other classes. So this would be just kind of looking out forward where they would end up.
All right, now Amy Sharonbrock is going to join us here and share a little bit more about meeting the needs of all of our learners and get more into Discover and Endeavor too.
All right, I feel like we've probably thrown so much information at you, so I'm going to try to condense it a little bit for you. I know that a lot of you have signed up to come either tomorrow or Tuesday for our See It Live, which allows you the opportunity to see Discover and Endeavor in action. If that doesn't work for you, feel free to call one of us. This is really a decision that is up to families. I think about, as we move forward with education, it's really exciting that we have these different opportunities. Going back to when I was in school, everybody was in the same class, everybody was doing the same exact thing, and so there was a ceiling, and if you were at that ceiling, you just kind of sat there. So it's a really exciting time in education. We know that not all learners learn the same, and not all learners are ready for information at the same time. So as we personalize learning in the district, we have 2 different instructional models for kids. One is not better or worse, or for the smarter kids or the lower kids. It really comes down to what structure is right for your child and their learning style. So we have our Endeavor and we have our Discover. In both of those models, students will take history, science, language arts, and communication arts. Okay, so all 4 of those classes will be within each of those models. It is designed around learning style, readiness, interest, passion areas. So if you had a child that went through East probably 4 years ago, you might be familiar with our X sequence, which is where we put kids into those accelerated courses based on test scores. We have moved away from that. We still use test scores as a piece of it, but that is not the end-all be-all where you have to have this percentage on a MAP test to be put in this type of model or this program. So the yellow sheet that you have in front of you, I think this is probably something that is going to be valuable at home in the next few weeks for you guys. So what you have is basically the chart kind of lays out Endeavor and Discover. As you take a look at the chart, you will notice that there is more things similar between the 2 models than there are different, okay? So a few things about Endeavor and Discover. This is true regardless of what model your child is in. Learners have choice on how to demonstrate learning. So they might be working on a standard, and they have an opportunity to choose how they are going to show evidence of learning. So it might be a presentation, it might be conferencing with a teacher, it might be taking a paper pencil test. Focus on 21st century skills and the 4 C's, which we've talked about. You'll see blended instruction, and if you come to See It Live, you will see that learning looks different. So it isn't really that teachers are in the front of the room like we're doing to you guys tonight and just rambling at you. You'll see that teachers are working one-on-one with kids. Teachers are holding coaching workshops. There is still direct instruction. Teachers are still doing seminars and lectures and those kind of things, but there's so many other ways to deliver that instruction so that kids are getting what they need. In both Endeavor and Discover, it is standards-based learning and reporting. So in Discover and Endeavor, they are working on the same academic standards. So they are working on all 6th grade standards in both of those models. Another thing about it is technology is the same in both. So with Chromebooks, we have access to information. Teachers, you're going to see, are facilitators of learning, and it's really about meeting kids at the level that they are at. The biggest difference, which you'll hear Andrew and Emily talk about tonight, is really down to the scheduling piece. So in Endeavor, students will get their schedule, and I actually think it's on the next one. Yep. All right, so what you'll see up here is this is an Endeavor student, okay? So they go second hour to history. So they go for 48 minutes, the bell rings, they get up and they rotate to communication arts with a different teacher. They go to math, fourth hour, fifth hour is science with a different teacher, sixth hour is language arts with a different teacher, okay? So this is more of a traditional bell schedule, okay? Over here on the right is just a sample schedule for a Discover student. And what you will see is they have a 4-hour block of time, so third, fourth, fifth, and sixth hour is all blocked together. They do not run on the bell schedule, okay? And they'll explain that in a little bit. But the biggest difference is over here, kids are actually signing up for the sessions in the classes that they are ready for and they need. Whereas over here, it's based on what they're scheduled for, okay? And it will make sense once you see it, I promise. All right, Andrew and Emily, want to come talk? Okay. It will make sense. I'll flip for you. Hi, I'm Emily Banian again. I teach U.S. history for 6th grade. This is my 3rd year teaching in the Endeavor model. So just wanted to kind of give you a brief look at what the Endeavor learner, a day in the life of an Endeavor learner would be. As Amy mentioned, they do follow the bell schedule, so every 48 minutes they switch to their next class based on what they are scheduled for. For example, we go from period 3, go to science. When the bell rings, you go to history. When the bell rings, you go to language arts. Kind of a very traditional schedule routine. Typical class period is repeated every day, and you have history the same hour, language arts the same hour, communication arts the same hour. Typically, they'll start with a lesson intro. We have a lecture or an activity. Practice time to apply that learning, and then homework is completed what the learner didn't finish in class. And this is a big thing with the homework piece, is we don't see a lot of homework coming home, and because we provide that work time in class for them to get those pieces done. As it was mentioned before as well, this is not just kind of a read a textbook, take a test, move on to the next thing. So even though it is more of a traditional schedule, we do still really focus on what are the learners' needs in the classroom and how can we make our lessons adapt to those learners' needs.
Okay, so Discover is different in that our kids all meet together for the first 10 to 15 minutes every day, and they really set their own schedule based on what they think they need. So when they come into the Learning Center, we'll show them this. We take that 4-hour block of time, and instead of following a bell schedule, we take that 4 periods, and we put it into 6 different sessions. So during session A, which will last maybe 25 to 30 minutes, kids have the option of going to a science class, which is green, a history class, blue, or a language arts class. They go to all these classes based on what they think they need. Now, it's all the same stuff that they get in the Endeavor class. I teach Discover and Endeavor, and trust me, it's the exact same stuff because I don't want to double my workload. But it's really a lot of students' choice figuring out what they need. So here's an example. One day I teach a lesson, and maybe half of my kids get it and half of them don't. Well, in the model we were using 10 years ago, the next day I have to then reteach that same concept, but the problem is I end up wasting the time of half of the kids who did get it the first time. In this model, we have the flexibility of teaching that, but then the kids who didn't get it can sign up for my coaching workshop, and then only those kids come and get the extra support. Or on the other side, maybe I teach something and I know, these 15 kids are really ready to move on, go above and beyond. I can offer a coaching workshop for those kids who are ready to go above and beyond, and the other kids are not, so then they go to whatever other session they need. So it's the same content, it's the same concepts, we practice the same skills. It's just a lot of flexibility as students choose what they need. So when we're looking for learners in the Endeavor model, we offer all these opportunities for kids to extend or give the extra support for kids who need that. We still offer those opportunities in Endeavor. The difference in Discover is we rely on the kids to understand their own learning and make those choices for themselves. So here's an example, day in the life of a Discover student. We all meet in the Learning Center. We explain what sessions are. So for example, if you want to come to my A session, I'm going to talk about what I'm offering in my A session. So all the kids understand what is being offered. And then kids go ahead and they set their own schedule. So one kid might choose for session A, they need some work time on a language arts learning target. Then they decide, well, I'm going to go to science for B. And C, I need a little extra help, so I'm going to go to this coaching workshop to get that support that I need. D, I'm going to build in some work time. I know I have a project due coming up. I need some personal time to just work on that, so I schedule some time off to the side of one of the classrooms, and I'm just going to work independently and ignore the teacher. It's the one time they're allowed to ignore us. We encourage it. Lunch is the same with all sixth graders. Doesn't matter what pathway you're in. And then maybe D, they're going to go back to science, and F, back to history. So it's the same stuff. We're just reliant on kids being able to make the choices for what they need. Is this still me? I have no idea. Okay, all right. So I'm probably going to repeat a lot of things I just said because I don't know what's on here. Endeavor. So when we set due dates for learning targets that are coming up, in our Endeavor classes, we all set due dates and we expect kids to meet those due dates. So if a assessment is being given on Wednesday, all of my kids are going to take that assessment on Wednesday. And Discover, I'll set a due date, and maybe the due date is Wednesday, but I introduce it a number of days ahead of time, maybe a week and a half ahead of time, and some of those kids are going to finish early, and some of those kids might wait until Wednesday to get it. We call them flexible due dates. That doesn't mean you don't have to do it until 2 weeks later, right? And we really emphasize that to the kids early on, because when we say this due date is flexible, a kid oftentimes means, oh, I don't have to do that for like a month. That's not the case. If a kid is 1 or 2 days late, we don't worry about it too much until it becomes a pattern of kids consistently being late, because we don't want to teach them bad habits and teach them that deadlines don't matter. So the whole class typically is working on the same learning targets at a time in Endeavor. We introduce something, it's due Wednesday, everyone does it, we give the support later on, but we're all working at the same pace. I should say within that, there is some flexibility. We do offer other coaching workshops, and we do have some kids working ahead, so there's still absolutely opportunity for rigor and opportunity to challenge kids within Endeavor, but for the most part, we're all still in the same spot. In Discover, we will teach something, and then kids, as they're setting their own schedules, they have to prioritize what they're going to do and the pace at which they're going to move. So we work in different units, and right now in my Discover classes, I have kids that are probably a unit to a unit and a half apart. There's quite a wide range based on where kids are. Okay, that's repetitive. Yeah, and I said that already. Okay. So the question is, in Discover, how do you prevent kids from just signing up with friends versus what they need? Good question. The honest answer is sometimes we don't. We try to. When kids sign up with their friends, we're okay with that until it becomes a problem. Kids, generally speaking, within the first few weeks to a month, start realizing that if they don't sign up for the sessions they need, they're going to fall behind and they're going to be in trouble. When kids are, for example, a kid needs a coaching workshop and they don't sign up for their coaching workshop because their friend doesn't, well, when that assignment is due and I give them the feedback saying, you did okay here, but you really need to improve there, And then we conference with the kid, and the kid is lost. Then we talk about why he didn't come to the coaching workshop. Kids learn pretty quickly that they need to really take into consideration what they need, not their friends. With that said, they're still sixth graders, and all of this independence is awesome, and they are a lot smarter than I am. So they're going to sign up with friends every once in a while. If it's a problem, then we intervene, and we start locking them into different places. We have the ability to go in and set their schedules for them when we need to. If the kids are in sessions with friends and they're still doing really well and we feel they're still challenged, we're okay with that. So it really depends largely on the student. I can go all day. We're good. You guys hasn't been too long yet, right? In Discover, is there a checklist to make sure they get required elements? Yeah, there is. So it's all of the same learning targets that we do in Endeavor. It's the same assessments that we do in Endeavor. When the kids sign up for their schedule, you'll notice, for example, this physical and chemical scoot. It's a science lesson. I have no idea what they learned, but it's a science lesson. It says 3 out of 4. That means it was offered 4 times. If it says that, a kid has to go to it one of those 4 sessions. That's not optional. When they go is completely optional, but they have to go at some point. Something like a coaching workshop, that's optional. You maybe do or maybe do not need that lesson. We make sure that they get all of the required stuff in these required sessions. I hope that answers the question, whoever it was.
All right, I'm going to answer a few other questions that have come up. The first one is how many kids are in Endeavor and how many are in Discover? This changes year to year, so we do not ever say that we need to get to 2 sections or 3 sections or 4 sections. We do staffing and scheduling based on the needs of kids. So this year in 6th grade, there's about 1/3 of the kids that are in our Discover model and 2/3 that are in Endeavor. Those kids do loop up to 7th grade if it's successful and if it's working and if that's what your family decides, and they go up to 8th grade. So Discover and Endeavor are 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. Once a path is chosen, can they switch? Absolutely. That's what I think is really hard, is the transition to 6th grade is a big enough transition, and then all of a sudden you have this big decision. A lot of kids will decide to start in Endeavor and then switch into Discover if they feel like they're ready for it. We also have kids that start in Discover and realize that the structure and the independence and the scheduling isn't the right fit for them, and then they can move to Endeavor. So while we don't want we don't want 50 kids moving either way, we're going to do what's best for the child at the end of the day. We have kids that start in Discover in 6th grade, and then they decide in 7th grade that they want to go to Endeavor, and vice versa. So that switch can happen between school years as well. The nice thing with both of the models doing the same academic standards is that regardless if your child is in Endeavor or Discover, they're meeting those same academic standards. Another thing, and I'm actually going to go on to answer this, is, this is you. Can we come back to it? Sure. Okay. So this is what a lot of parents want to know, is how do we find that right place or the right fit for our child? I wish this was an easy question to answer, and it isn't. So feel free at any time if your family wants to come in and chat. We are more than happy to sit down. But here's kind of the process that we use. Early next week, all families will receive an email through Parent Portal from our secretary with a link to a learner profile. That learner profile is about 8 questions. It is all questions about how your child learns. We ask that you fill it out to the best of your ability. We know that it might be a little bit hard because you might see your child one way at home and they might be a little bit different in school. So a good option is to fill that profile out or have a discussion with your child about their learning, because we want them to be part of this. So you fill out the learner profile, it gets sent to us. We also get elementary school data and information, so we still do review test scores. That data and information will then be reviewed by a team at Middle School East, And what we then do is we make a recommendation to families over the course of the summer. It's our recommendation on what we think. Ultimately, though, it comes down to your decision as a family. On that learner profile, the last question says, at this point, which instructional model do you feel is the right fit for your child? There's a few different options. Definitely Endeavor, definitely Discover, leaning towards Endeavor, leaning towards Discover. My child could do well in either, or unsure at this point. So we'll really use that question along with the different rating scales to help us in making that recommendation. Another thing I think that's really helpful is that parent-teacher conferences are coming up at Jonathan and Victoria. Beth and I go over to all the elementaries and meet with all of our 5th grade teachers. They also have been over here to see our Discover and Endeavor. So they are a really good source of information for you. They know your children really well. So we don't want to put a ton of pressure on them to feel like they have to tell you guys one way or another, but it's a great conversation to have at conferences and just to kind of pick their brain a little bit about that. In terms of the profile, it's just a Google form, and like I said, it's super, super easy. Just be as honest as possible. If there's questions that you're struggling with, get input from your child. That is just one piece of the puzzle. All right, do you want to go back to Empower, or do you have a question?
Well, I have a attendance question. Okay. So one of the questions here is attendance tracking and Discover who's responsible for tracking attendance if the kids set their own schedule. The answer is we as teachers are still able to do that. All of the students' sign up is done electronically, so we are able to go into student histories and download a nice spreadsheet, and we can see if a student is skipping required sessions, and then we have that conversation to make sure they're not doing that. So we do still track attendance and make sure they're getting to where they need to be. Just on the front end, a lot more responsibility is put on the learner. So Emily and I are going to talk about the Empower learning platform. We're both using it this year as a pilot, and then next year more teachers, more classes in 6th grade are going to go to this. I think next year, social studies, science, and language arts. I think that's it, right? So really half of your student stay is going to be reported through Empower. So Empower is a student learning platform. Really the idea is to report in a standards-based manner. I think, Emily, you're going to talk to this a little bit?
Yeah. Okay, so for what the Empower is, we have our standards that we base all of our instruction on, and this is put into that Empower format that we have. I think some of you might have students that are already in Empower, so this might be familiar to some of you. But it's a great place that we can provide everything, kind of one-stop shop. So you have your assessment, your feedback, your resources, everything is in that place. Oh, sorry, I took one of yours from the other side. And it's a great communication platform for between us and you guys, between you and your student, between the students and us. So it's not only their learning platform, but also their communication platform. So kind of combine everything into one tool that you guys can use as students and parents and us as teachers.
So I'm just going to give you a real brief overview of what it looks like. I don't want to overwhelm you because it's not fair to ask you to understand something that you're not living in or experiencing. But in Empower, what we basically do is we set up playlists for the students. So I need the kids to understand this concept. Instead of posting all of that on a web page or having different worksheets in the classroom and the resources all over the place, I set up a playlist in Empower, and there you can see links to all of the lessons, any digital resources I used in a lesson, links to any activities students did in class, links to what the assessment looks like. It's all in one spot in playlists. And putting it in playlists gives students the option of self-pacing. So if a kid is moving really quickly, and frankly moving quicker than I am as a teacher, they're able to just move through that playlist in a large part by themselves. We also use Empower because we want to clarify the learning goals. So when I went to school, I might have some sort of worksheet or reading. The teacher would put it in the grade book. Maybe they would label it Guided Reading 6.2. And I wouldn't get it done. My parents would ask, why are you missing Guided Reading 6.2? And my answer is, I have no idea what that is. That's a foreign term to me, guided. So we are trying to clarify what everything is associated with. So everything is in learning targets, every assignment, every activity, every lecture, every seminar, everything we do is associated with at least one learning target. So if a student is missing something or is working on something, he or she knows exactly what learning that's associated with. And we're able to do that a lot better through Empower. So when you look at the grade book, it's going to look different than the grade books you and I grew up with, but you'll know why they did an activity rather than just some random activity, and we're just going to trust the teacher knows what he's doing. Also through Empower, we're able to give a lot more feedback. When you and I were in school, usually we took a test, or we did some sort of assessment, we got a grade, and then we were just done with that and we moved on to the next thing. In Empower, we're able to give the kids a lot more feedback. So when they turn something in, it doesn't mean they're done just because they turned it in. If they didn't learn what they're supposed to learn, we give them feedback and we have them continue working on it until they reach the level of mastery that we expect. This is a huge feature of Empower that it's more difficult to do when we just give the kid a letter and just, okay, I got a C, I kind of knew it, but not really, let's just all move on. Through this feedback loop, we're going to make sure your kid knows the stuff before he or she moves on.
All right, again, tons of information here, and we are going to share out this whole presentation, including the audio. So when you receive the profile, when you get sent that profile as email, that'll be linked to this. So I know we're going fast, and it's a lot of information. But just really quickly, another way to get involved here. I know Mr. Gilbert talked about how important it is to be involved. Sometimes middle schoolers act like they don't want their parents here, but I think they do really like it when you show up to different events and activities. So there's all kinds of activities that you can be a part of as part of our PTO. I know we're looking for some help next year, that one of our co-chairs doesn't have a child at Middle School East anymore, so just consider those opportunities. Oh, other way. And this is a really fun opportunity that all sixth graders will have, and that's to head to Deep Portage. I know when I talk to sixth graders about what's the most fun thing about sixth grade, lots of them say Deep Portage. So in the fall, they will have the opportunity to go. It's 2 nights overnight, lots of outdoor experiences. And we do need chaperones for that too, so that's another way that you could get involved. And so there'll be the link on the presentation, so you can check that out more if you're interested. And I think Beth just has a couple things to share, and then she'll answer some questions that folks posted.
All right, the last real big thing on our presentation is I just want to share a little bit about WEB. WEB stands for Where Everyone Belongs, and it's something we took on as a district about 4 years ago, and it's been a really great opportunity to welcome our 6th grade students to our building in the fall, as well as give our 8th grade learners a real good leadership opportunity and a connection with our 6th graders when the school year starts. So you'll get more information about WEB from us, but I just want it to be on your radar that right during orientation, we have a day where it's actually Wednesday, August 23rd from 1 to 3:30. And what'll happen is you'll drop your kids off in the commons area here, and then we will kind of shuttle them into the gym, and they will spend the day with some 8th grade leaders that have been trained and gave up days of their summer in order to make sure they know all sorts of really great fun activities to welcome your 6th graders to our building. So it's a great opportunity for them to kind of see some of their peers for the first time, as well as meet some 8th graders who will be around that first week of school to help them with things like lockers and finding classes and different things like that as well. And then at 3:30, when you pick your kids up, then that's the time that they'll be able to get their schedules at orientation and buy gym clothes and all that kind of stuff too. So WEB is a really great opportunity for that also. Also, one great way to learn a little bit about East is follow us on Twitter and Facebook. We post a lot of pictures throughout the school day of some fun activities that we do, some things teachers are doing to, have professional development and different opportunities like that as well. So it's a really great way to learn some things about us at East as well. And before you guys leave, make sure you just take a second to answer that second question of kind of at this time, and obviously we won't know who answered yes or no, so this isn't committing you one way or the other, but just kind of what are you feeling after hearing the presentation today about Discover and Endeavor, and where are you kind of feeling might be a good fit for your child. And with that, I'll answer a couple of questions. What are ballpark core class sizes? And I would say that our core class sizes range, sometimes we're able, with some extra funding, to get our math classes a little bit smaller. So our math classes are usually a little bit smaller, but our core classes are probably in that 27 to 30 range, I would say, is probably about average for our classes. Another question, does East offer art? And we do offer art. It is not a required class or an elective that they take in 6th grade, but it is a required class that they take in 7th grade, and electives that they can take also in 7th and 8th grade as well. So there is that opportunity for art. One other way that students can access art in 6th grade, we have different opportunities during our flex advisory time where they can sign up to go meet with other teachers. They could do a personal wellness, a gym activity, or they could go to our art room and do an art activity with our art teacher as well. We also have an art club after school, so there are some opportunities to stay involved in that art class if that's your child's passion in 6th grade. What is the Encore trimester class? And those were the classes that Andrew went over a little bit earlier, those FACS class and that technology and design thinking. Those are those required semester classes that they'll take since we're moving from trimesters to semesters. Let's see here. Is Empower used in Endeavor and Discover? And yes, it is. Next year, our Endeavor and Discover programs will be using Empower in language arts, science, and social studies for sure. So those 3 classes will be in Empower next year for 6th grade. Another question, are kids allowed to carry backpacks between classes? And we do not allow backpacks in between classes. Obviously, there's those exceptions to the rule. For whatever reason, we have a lot of crutches in the middle school. So when a student may have broken a leg or has a broken arm in a cast or something, we obviously have different accommodations for them during that time. Maybe they have a friend walk with them between classes and carry their backpack for them or things like that. The majority of our students carry a binder. You can buy binders that have a specific slot in them for the Chromebook so that they can stay safe there, and that also has their folders and their notebooks and things in, so it's a great organizational tool as well as it keeps that Chromebook safe too. So the majority of students carry that binder throughout the day. School policy for cell phones and Chromebooks. And obviously we have cell phones and Chromebooks throughout our building at all times. And the great thing about Chromebooks is it really allows us to limit the cell phone use in our classrooms more too. So really what our general policy is in each classroom might differ from day to day if there's a need for a cell phone, but that it needs to be, turned off and not visible during a class time. So most classes, unless they're using them for a specific educational tool at that time, have cell phones turned off and hidden during class time. And I know over there it says technology at lunch, yes and no. So there are days that we allow technology at lunch and days that we don't allow technology at lunch. We want to make sure we encourage them to talk with each other, not just text each other all day, of course. Can students use their own laptop rather than the Chromebook? Absolutely. That is totally a parent choice. If you'd rather have them bring their own laptop, that's totally fine. Do you turn your Chromebook in at elementary or bring it to the middle school? And interestingly enough, at about 5 o'clock today, I got my email telling me a little bit more about what the plan is with that. So yes, they are planning that the Chromebooks that they currently have as 5th graders will travel with them to the elementary or to the middle schools this next year. So they will have them over the summer and bring them on that first day of school and have them ready. We will not be distributing new ones on that first week of school next year for 6th graders. And let's see, I missed one. Does the Discover carry into high school, or is their structure similar to Endeavor? And in the high school, I know Chan offers the quad at Chanhassen High School, and there are also other accelerated courses for physics and language arts in the high school. And obviously, throughout the next couple of years, there's probably going to be changes to some things at the middle school as well as the high school. So I can't say specifically what will be and will not be offered at the high school by that point, but there are some different accelerated options there also. Yeah, and I wanted to make sure I introduced a couple other people that joined us throughout our presentation too. Gina Ford is our orchestra teacher here, and so wanted to make sure introduce her. She's a great person to talk to if you have any questions about our music program, of course, as well as Robin Bloom is our specialized services coordinator in the back, and she's here to answer any questions that you might have about any specialized services too. So with that, did you have some questions, Mr. Gilbert?
Just a couple questions came through on foreign language. First question, will colleges recognize more than 1 year of language completed in middle school? Through the transcript, it's transcribted as a high school class. So I know in the schools of Eastern Carver County, there's a requirement of 2 years of a foreign language in order to, that's part of their requirements for a diploma. Now, if I'm thinking as a parent and my 6th grade is like, I want to take Spanish in 6th grade and 7th grade and be done with that, that's probably not a good reason why to take Spanish. But that's something where, yes, it is recognized as a high school class. Do they have to start Spanish in 6th grade, or can they start in 7th or 8th grade? For that matter, I worked at Chaska High School. Many of the students waited till 9th, 10th grade to start. It's really, we're giving people the option. If they're willing and they have a passion for, to learn a foreign language, we want to provide that option, but you definitely have time. There's no pressure. Looking at it, what's the benefit? Well, and I just actually had to run to my office and grab the high school manual, is there are 7 levels of Spanish. It goes 1 through 5, and then there's 2 courses of AP, one in the language itself, another AP course in literature. So there are 7 levels of Spanish, but AP can be taken after Spanish 4. Okay, so again, there's no pressure. It's really about if they have that passion to start in 6th grade, and to go with that is it does replace, like for instance, if they want Spanish, well, they would not take the required elective of a FACS or that tech elective, so that would kind of replace that. So again, it's really about the passion that they have for a foreign language. If they're ready and they want that challenge of a foreign language, I would certainly say yes. But you can certainly wait, and there is plenty of time, even until high school. You know your kids, better than us, and you realize, are they really ready for that foreign language? So, no need to rush into that.
I just want to thank you guys so much for coming and joining us tonight. I know giving up an hour of your evening isn't always easy, so just want a big thank you for that, and know that we are all here to answer questions not only tonight after this, but please call, stop by the building if you email us, anything. We're always open and happy to answer questions, whether it's through the remainder of this school year, if it's about a class that you definitely are questioning whether or not your child should take, or if it's Endeavor versus Discover questions. We are always here in the summer too. Andrew and I work all summer long, so if anything comes up that you have questions about, anything, we want to make sure to help you and make sure this is an easy transition for you and your family. So give us a call, send us an email, stop by. We're happy to help with anything. And of course, we're all here tonight to answer questions if you have any also. So thanks again for coming.